Of all the racing subgenres, it would appear that drift racers are the most prominent on the Switch, and indeed I've covered quite a few on the channel, most of which have been absolute tripe. But now comes Pixel Retro Drift Arcade Racing, a new drift racer from VRC Forge Studios, which, going by the trailer and screenshots, by all accounts looks like it might be pretty decent. But the question is it? Well, drop a like and a sub, and let's find out. So right away I'm getting the impression that we're in for a royal shit show with this one, as the main menu features some clearly AI generated artwork, and navigating it involves a combination of using the D-pad, thumbsticks and L and R triggers for some reason. Getting into the game though, we can see that we have our standard mobile racing game setup that we've seen countless times before. We have 5 different stages to choose from, each containing a series of races which must be completed in order and which you must come first in order to progress through them, a bunch of cars to unlock which are purchased using currency earned from races but which are locked behind stage completion barriers, and an upgrade system which allows you to spend cash to upgrade your car's speed, power, boost and handling. It's pretty standard stuff and about as low effort as you can get, as this setup is usually baked into the many game templates that you can find on the Unity Asset Store, which I suspect this game was built from. Getting into the racing though, our first foray into the world of Pixel Retro Drift sees us facing off in a one-on-one race against an opponent who every 10 seconds or so fires a missile at us, and we simply need to avoid the missiles and finish the race, which isn't all that difficult. After this though, we get into the game proper, and when it comes to the racing mechanics, this one is an arcade racer through and through, though they've taken the term arcade to the extreme here, with zero attempt to add any kind of simulation aspects into the game. The steering sensitivity is cranked up way too high, and beyond the increases and decreases to speed that hills have on your cars, there's nothing in the way of physics acting on them, and so the handling feels way too precise, almost like they've taken a racing game engine out of the box and forgot to configure any of the parameters in it. The drifting is activated by holding the X button and is either on or off, and hitting Y gives you a turbo boost whose meter is charged by drifting. However, the fact that you can turn on a dime means that the drifting mechanics become almost defunct, with you able to navigate sharp corners with little to no effort. And in the vast majority of races, I simply had to hold down my accelerator and then steer around the corners with absolutely no requirement for either the drift, turbo or brake buttons. Now when it comes to race variety, discounting the initial versus race, it appears as though we have 3 different race types here, and I say appears as though because after repeatedly cycling through them about 10 times over, I'd had about enough of the game and decided to call it quits. But you basically have your standard 3-lap drift races against 5 other racers, who after the starting grid you likely won't see again, single lap races which are over in about 30 seconds and again feel like you're racing solo, and finally single lap time trial races, which when you first play one will inform you that you need to complete a lap before the timer runs out and that you also need to dodge traffic whilst doing so. However, there's no traffic to be found in these races, so it's basically just a single lap on your own. The final race in each stage is another one-on-one versus, where your vehicle is automatically slowed down to keep you behind the missile car, but once again these last about 30 seconds and you could probably complete them even if you didn't bother to dodge the incoming missiles. Beyond my first couple of races though, there was absolutely no challenge to be had here whatsoever, and while I initially thought that I'd been for a grind fest and would have been required to repeatedly upgrade my car to keep up with competition, after the first few upgrades to the speed and power of the starter car, I had no issues whatsoever leaving every other vehicle in my dust as I leisurely cruised around the tracks, securing first place in every single race. After beginning the second set of races, I then had to purchase a new tier 2 car, but by this time I'd amassed enough money to buy the best car and fully upgrade everything on it, and this was fast enough to absolutely demolish both these races and the third set of races. Now in terms of the graphics, the screenshots of the game portray it as having a pixelated PS1 style visual aesthetic, but in reality, the art assets in the game feature a mishmash of random styles, including some that are low poly and others that are a lot more detailed, so it appears as though the developer just searched the asset store and picked up whatever was on sale at the time without any consideration being given to consistency. While the frame rate holds up well on the Switch and there are no issues with performance, this is likely only due to the fact that the draw distance is minuscule, with constant popping of trees, barriers and buildings only a few feet ahead of your car, and terrain which encroaches on the track, popping through the road at points. There are about 5 different environments with a few different tracks from what I could tell, none of which were memorable and all of which became stale after the first few races on them. So in short, the game is goddamn ugly, it's a pixel retro racer in name alone, and none of the races are actually worth racing. And the same can be said of the sound design, which is basically just stock audio assets and some music tracks which I instantly recognised as those found on the same platform that I get my music from, that being Epidemic Sound. Once again though, what we have here is a hastily thrown together racing game with very little consideration actually put into the racing. It follows the same format as many other cheap mobile racers with meaningless upgrades, uninspiring tracks and has a non-pixel pixel aesthetic which totally negates its namesake. And while the racing mechanics are entirely functional, after your first couple of tracks, you'll likely want to put the brakes on it and never start it up again. That though is it for this review of Pixel Retro Drift Arcade Racing. So leave a comment down below with your thoughts and opinions on it, and if it helped you out, drop a like and subscribe for more Nintendo Switch content. But for now, thanks to the patrons of the channel for their ongoing support, and to you the viewers for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves, and game on.